Fingers crossed this From Melbourne to Madrid show will go up on YouTube. Obviously, from different countries, technical issues arise. We've had a few already, but we're hoping this one will be good. The first one I stuffed up. The second one was unlucky, but this one looks to be okay. So Lewis and I were talking about kind of the football transfers that have happened recently. So to quickly recap, without Lewis having to repeat what he said, we're talking about, PSG, Mbappe, the initial loan signing, an interesting signing compared to other ones like Renato Sanchez to Swansea, even to an extent, previous transfer windows, Annan Januzaj to Borussia Dortmund. So there's been quite a few of these transfers, and more recently we were talking about Oxlade-Chamberlain to Liverpool. Probably, Lewis, what I want to ask you is, what out of all these transfers, aside from the Neymar one, what has been the most captivating transfer, the most interesting transfer that has caught your attention?
I mean, most captivating for everyone would be Mbappe. For everyone. For me, geez, I have a few to choose from. Thing is, both Renato Sanchez and Oxlade-Chamberlain are like up there to an extent. Because the Renato one, I sort of didn't see it coming. Right, I thought he would get more playing time. And the Oxlade one is just like if he had more years on his contract and Arsenal were a good team, like a top team challenging trophies, he wouldn't have left. But he left, like he was offered a pay rise on his new contract, but he chose not to sign it. So that tells you something about him, doesn't it? So it was really hard to pick just the one. Alexis, we could be talking about Alexis Sanchez. I don't even know how they managed to hold on to him because Man City offered two bids, made two bids yesterday. An initial one of 55 and then another one of 60. And both of them were turned down inexplicably because are you just going to let a player of Alexis Sanchez caliber go for free? I mean, I would have taken the money and just ran away, but no, but that's no, like I don't know, like that. I thought that's what, especially a club like Arsenal, I thought that's what they would do. Do count. That's all they do, just count money notes for now. I mean, because that's all they care about. I haven't seen them back in the day. They would challenge for trophies year in, year out, and now apart from FA Cups, don't seem to do quite well in other competitions. So unless they're trying to sign him and offer him a new contract throughout this season, he's going to go for free, and that's what 60, 70 million pound gone for free.
I draw some similarities.
That's why it's interesting that they've kept him.
I draw some similarities. Yeah, I draw some similarities to Robin van Persie there. So Robin van Persie, he was sold to Man U before his contract winded down.
Exactly. I thought they would do the same.
Yeah. Well, maybe Arsenal have, Arsene Wenger, the board have just said, look, we don't want this RVP situation happening. We want players, but it depends. Like if Sanchez goes in January, like
two things here, right? It's a different situation to Van Persie because he publicly said I want to leave. I want to be a winner. And when he arrived at Man United, he said that. I don't think Alexis has ever, been public about it. And if he left, like the fans would understand it. Because look, like Arsenal have never been this bad. Like I repeat again, like they were the Invincibles. 12, 13 years ago. And just look where they are now. I mean, they've gotten to a situation where they are fourth forced to sell because their players want to play for them. And when you get to that stage, you're in real trouble. I mean, it's Arsenal we're talking about. We're not talking about a small team. Like this club, a lot of players and managers would want to be in that club. I'm sure a lot of them still do, right? And want to put the club back where it belongs.
Yeah.
Players that are there. Um, Even Arsene Wenger gets criticized because it just seems like it seems really comfortable to be there at the moment. Like you're not, they don't feel the pressure to succeed. And back in the day, you know, the Vieiras, um, Bergkamps, Henry's, Pires, like all these guys would felt the pressure to win. That's why they succeeded. Right now, there's just no, they just don't feel that expectation when they should. I mean, considering the wages and just everything, you know, all the luxurious things they get of being at Arsenal. You don't get that at many other clubs. It's a top club.
Well, no, because yeah, also the culture as well. So it's not just like the mere monetary, you know, financial reward. It's they have a strong culture, the unbeatables, you know, Thierry Henry back in the day. Um, so the culture's there, and you know they kept Arsene Wenger. So a lot of players respect. He's the kind of manager who I know you're not a huge fan of Arsene Wenger, but um, I would say that you have to admit that players tend to want to play for him because he's one of these managers that kind of backs in his players, even if their form is not great. He actually stays generally quite positive. Um,
Mm.
it's a contrast between him and Jose Mourinho, but both good managers in their own right. I mean, depends how you rate managers, isn't it? Like, do you rate them on wins and losses? Do you rate them on the situation? Because this is the first time in a while Arsenal are not competing in the Champions League. Let's not forget that. So pressure's on.
I just think success nowadays comes more with, and Arsene Wenger doesn't have that. So that's why I think it was a wrong decision to keep him. They're very comfortable with the revenue they get. They have the highest, most expensive tickets in the world. Arsenal. They they're just one of the top clubs financially, believe it or not. They're not spending as nowhere near as much as they're earning. That's down to the owners and partly down to Wenger for not demanding that money. Um, he can only do so much with the squad he has. That's right, but it's not like he has a bad set of players. He's got a lot of the players he has are international players. So it just everything adds up. So it just it doesn't surprise me where they find themselves in. Who knows how much worse it could get? But um,
So how are they doing in the EPL at the
obviously, they
moment?
have put themselves into this situation. Last game was against Liverpool and they lost 4-0 away. So that's not a good sign.
Well, no.
Um,
Yeah.
they scrapped a win against Leicester. I mean, it was a really fun game to watch. I watched that. I watched that one. But they were 3-2 down and scored 2 goals in the
Yeah,
last 10, 15 minutes.
Giroud and
And then they
Ramsey.
lost to Stoke away. Yeah, and then they lost 1-0 away to Stoke.
Well,
So no, they're short on players. That's another thing. But the players they have aren't bad. I mean, let's just realize that. But if you want to challenge for trophies, you've got to have a squad, not just a team, right? Because in football, those two terms are different. Like your team is your starting 11 and your bench players. But you need a squad. You need players that might not play every week, but when they come and play, they're almost as good as your starting 11. And they're short of that, way short of that. That has been spent.
yeah, so there's a depth issue in the Arsenal squad, and you compare it to like the top clubs of Real Madrid, Barcelona. They have that depth. Or Barcelona's debatable with the loss of Neymar.
I mean,
Uh,
look, when I said about Barcelona's depth, it's more like just comparing their team to previous years. I mean, compared to many other clubs in Europe, they still have good depth. Um, yeah, I was just comparing them like within their own teams. Like I think they've had better teams in previous years.
yeah, and that's probably not a good sign for Wenger because Wenger was kind of given the transfer. He was given a transfer boost. He got Lacazette, which was a good transfer. He's been one of the few players at Arsenal who's been actually doing okay. Um,
Yeah, but
and
everything is just everything. Yeah, you mentioned like I said. I just wanted to add something to that. It's just everything is really weird at Arsenal. Like they spend what was it, £50 million on him, and then they put him on the bench against Liverpool. Um, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Um,
that does not make any sense.
and
Was he injured?
also, yeah, he was, and also, I think if you sign someone of that caliber that early in the transfer window, that sort of sends a message that okay, we're going to spend big in the summer. But then after that, they signed no one else. So they brought in Kolasinac, and um, and then they just stopped there.
Hmm.
More players. While other clubs, United, it was just one signing after another, another after another. Arsenal, they just honestly, they're just a very weird functioning club recently, and it's sad. Like it gets to a point where it's sad, right? You sort of bully them for a bit, and it's always good to beat them. But it gets to a point where you think about the players, the success they've had in the past, and you don't. There are no signs of that happening again in the short term, not even in the medium term. Long term, I mean, they have a huge rebuilding job to do from top to bottom because just nothing is working, like absolutely nothing. Um, I think I've already pointed out sort of the problems that are there. It's down to the owners. Maybe if a new owner comes in who's seen the problems there, because the current owner, it just seems like he doesn't care. He's just there for the money, and it's sort of true though. No, like it is true. But the weird thing about all of this is how is he still making revenue and money?
Hmm.
Is he making off the pitch, Arsenal, to for the owner to be happy? Because on the pitch you can't be happy, can you?
No, and that's where it counts, doesn't it? Not off the pitch. And I think, you know,
Fans, yeah.
yeah, and the off the pitch moves count though. At the end of the day, like your transfer strategy has to be consistent and solid, and that hasn't been the case at Arsenal. Because what have they done? Traditionally, they've been known as the hesitant transfer movers. Like they kind of there's rumors that they're going after a player, but then they just don't get them in the end.
So many
Higuain was one. Um,
rumors, rumors uh, Arsenal, and they never. It's just spent. It doesn't happen
mhm.
for one reason or another. They just don't seem to get who they want. My concern for them is right. A lot of it is down to money nowadays. But Oxlade-Chamberlain, for instance, and concede and win trophies, and he's going. They're not going to convince players to come over to be winners because they're not winners.
No, and that brings up another whole issue of how can they get their transfer targets if they're not the club that they're meant to be, which is a club that's winning titles or just, very competitively, because it's about the league, isn't it? I mean, it's all good to win FA Cups, but you have to contend. You have to not just make the top four, but you have to really contend, especially with Arsenal's
FA,
position.
is, FA Cup is just not what it used to be anymore, right? Cups aren't what they used to be anymore. It's all about the league, which determines who is the most consistent team, and the only currently Champions League. Of
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Yeah, and it's kind of like, you know, where do your priorities lie?
very
Like,
big league for them.
yeah, it's kind of like, you know, do your priorities lie in, you
Yeah,
know,
well,
winning the FA
well,
Cup, winning the league, or
them, them for right in the short term Europa League. I mean, if they get through the group stage quite comfortably, they might assess winning the Europa League. But that doesn't mean they shouldn't still compete in the league. They should short term because I think every I don't know quickly because they just players are playing out of position. It's just getting really sad as a club because you just want to beat them in a competitive, exciting match. You don't want to see them. You don't want to see them do. Yeah,
no, you don't. You want them to be competitive, to be the team that they should be. And especially like with the Europa League, um, obviously if you win the Europa League, you're booked a place into the UEFA Champions League. But the owners, they shouldn't just forget the league entirely, because at the end of the day, even if they do fly past the group stage, they could still be in a position like the final day, like the final match. Man U played Ajax and they won. But you know, Man U had, you know, a few difficult games in the Europa League. It wasn't all, you know, an easy task, and you never know what can happen in a game of football, and it all comes down to one day in the final, and it's a
a
50-50.
lot of
Yeah.
this about the Europa League. It's great that it's another way of qualifying for the Champions League, and it adds so much pressure to the teams in it because the rewards are big. And I mean, seeing Arsenal recently though, I think they might prioritize the Europa League. But they're just so poor in the league. I know we've only just started, but I can't. I don't see them being consistent at all for 38 games. And Everton have improved. Uh, Other teams have improved below them. West Brom, West Brom. Who did they end up getting? Well, they kept their basis of their team, and they were going to bring in someone which just shocked me. I'm like, how a player of that caliber has ended up at West Brom? I'll look into it, but just overall, teams below Arsenal have made way more signings. I passed you on a table as well,
Yeah.
which reflected, money spent, and Arsenal were like at the bottom
So
of that
weird.
table.
You know, like why is that? You know, why are they doing that? Like, they really have to have a look at their strategy, because it comes into play in future seasons. It comes into play with the results on the pitch. I mean, if your strategy is not there, then how can you expect to perform? I mean, and their depth is a real issue. I mean, on paper, their starting 11's really good, right? They have Peter Cech, former Chelsea player, good goalkeeper. They got rid of Gabriel. He's at another, isn't he? I think he's at La Liga now. And you have you have a solid starting 11, but it's the bench players coming in, and I don't know, they could have done with a few more transfers perhaps. So they'll have to make do with their players.
Krychowiak appears like a defensive mid Arsenal, and West Brom or West Brom managed to convince Krychowiak just it's just the odd one or two players, right? But overall, there's so much there. What then? To say it's true.
So do you reckon Alexis Sanchez is a real possibility to go
in January? Well, if it gets really, really bad, yeah, no doubt about that.
But can they afford to lose him though?
It's gotten to a point where they have to rebuild from top to bottom. Alexis isn't. He's at the prime, right? And I'm sure players would want to play with him, but when you look at the whole squad, like, well, I want to play with Alexis, but maybe if Alexis Sanchez goes to Man City, then I'll go to Man City with him. Playing with him at Arsenal. It's just a problem about it's the whole club. They've just damaged their reputation by themselves.
But with
They put
the
themselves in.
club of Arsenal's pride, like, it might be hard for them to say, okay, we need to rebuild, like we're saying, from like, or what you're saying, from top to bottom, because especially, it's hard to take that step back, but they probably need to, and they haven't really done so properly, and it's kind of costly.
They just need to get rid of all the players that they don't want, and there are a number of them. I mean, like, the fans don't like a number of their players. You got to keep your fans happy. That's I'm sure for those who don't know Arsenal Fan TV, it'd be really funny. Just have with a performance. At one point, like getting one of them.
Yeah, and imagine if they actually had like a poll for
without signing a new contract next month. Because we'll just go to right now. Is it Ramsey as well? There's so many you can with your team.
Yeah, I mean, they've got some real decisions to make. The whole, I mean, especially on their manager. I mean, the manager's another issue in itself, whether they go for a different philosophy there. Because if you're talking of a rebuild, you have to mention the manager, because the manager has been a staple of their team for years and years. The same strategy tweaked. Do they go for a new manager? I reckon the rebuild starts on the manager. Because just from a tactical sense, and Arsenal have generally, apart from the last season, whatever, they've made the top four consistently. If they want to challenge, they have to. It's change. You have to change. You have to try new things.
To give Arsene Wenger credit, he's made top four so consistently. After maybe some transfer some transfers that he wouldn't have wanted or didn't get, didn't
Mm.
happen. So in a way, like he's made top four sometimes when they were counted out. The frustrating thing for fans, though, is that top four isn't enough. Like they want to see a competitive team, a competitive club, some ambition, and that's what's been lacking under Wenger for so long. But it's just not down to him. Like a lot of people are convinced that if a new manager comes, everything will more or less stay the same. Because a lot of people believe it's down to the owners and right at the top. And the way you change that is by not going to games, tough decisions that fans wouldn't want to.
Yeah, I mean, but like it'd be hard for some supporters though to like not go to games, right? Because especially with the love and devotion Arsenal have towards the club. But then again, you look at last season, you had some Arsenal fans kind of venting against Wenger at their own games, and Wenger actually spoke out about that and said it was not something that he was proud of, and that's always a dangerous position when you go against the fans a little bit. So it's just there's tension. There's tension at the club, and there has been for a little while. To
It's
relieve,
just a disgusting, yeah, it's just a disgusting atmosphere that for players to like for new players to come into, it's just not attractive at all, right? And when a club isn't attractive, I think that's the key word here. When you're not attracted to go to a new club, then I don't know, you have to look at yourself. I mean, like everyone in the club, because it's just it's just Arsenal. Like it's not a small club. It's not a club that's never won anything. Like that's a really sad thing. Um, I mean, we'll have to give them time, I guess. But some big decisions coming up. Players, the manager. I think people within the board. Um, and from my point of view, I think a new owner, hopefully, will come in and buy out the club because the current one is absolutely clueless.
so I'm unaware of Arsenal's owner. Is Arsenal's owner not knowledgeable in football or just making wrong decisions? What's going on?
No, no, not he's not knowledgeable basically because he owns an ice hockey team. He owns the Denver Nuggets of the NBA.
Wow.
He owns a baseball team. Stan Kroenke, for those who haven't heard of him, you can look him up. But I just see a lot of disinterest from on his behalf towards Arsenal. And when you let an owner like that run your club, um, it's not going to end well.
But yeah, because the owner is becoming increasingly more integral, isn't it, in today's transfer market, especially when the money value is rising. I'm assuming you'd have to have that communication between the manager and the owner. And I mean, it's all about trust, isn't it, though? Because since Arsenal's not doing that well, you go to a trust factor where can the owner trust Wenger to get the right players, and let alone the player being attracted to the club. I mean, that's another issue itself. Um, I mean, you have a look at Sir Alex Ferguson um, when he was at Man United, and the owners trusted him because he had that backbone of success, league after league titles, and the owner will most of the time would, back him in. But so now you have a situation where Wenger may not be backed in as much. Lewis, are you there? All right, I think we're having a few technical difficulties. Hey, Lewis, are you there? Hey, Lewis, are you there?
Yeah, it's still working. Who,
Okay, I didn't end the call. What happened? Was it just unlucky?
like, yeah,
Yeah.
we're
Okay.
unlucky, us too. But
That's right.
I just quickly wanted to say, like, the issue at Arsenal isn't the trust between the owner and the manager. It's quite the opposite.
Hmm.
Like, they get along really well. It's just they're not ambitious enough for a club of Arsenal's culture, size, identity.
Yeah, but I mean, the identity itself, if they get rid of Wenger, their identity a little bit is gone. I mean, you have this
But
sentiment.
yeah, no, I understand that, but the main identity of a club, I would think, is to win more than
Yeah.
keeping a manager. Like United have gotten through it. Um, the first few years after Sir Alex Ferguson left were hard, but you have to move on. And now they're back into winning ways. Like the fans have realized you can't keep a manager forever, but you can win forever. You just have to find the right tools. You have to find the ambition. You have to make the right signings, decisions, everything. But Arsenal are going just everything they do right now is the wrong
They're going south.
decision. Yeah,
Look, I think from an analyst's perspective, I mean, their position on the ladder, how they're performing in games, it's just not stacking up at the moment. I mean, they could have done with a player of Mbappe's quality. You know what I mean? They could have done with a player well, I mean, Oxlade to Liverpool's a loss. I mean, that was an interesting transfer, but
look, they missed out on Monaco players. They could have gone for Draxler at PSG because apparently he wasn't wanted. It's just so many players they could have gotten with the financial power they have, and they haven't. And as a fan, and especially a ticket holder, that would be so frustrating.
yeah, and you've got this situation where Alexis Sanchez might want to leave sooner rather than later. So it's a bit of a whirlwind.
Honestly, I can see him not wanting to play Alexis because his mindset right is to win, and he'll give you everything on the pitch, but he can't do it on his own. Um, and look, in a way, I was surprised from the beginning when he signed for Arsenal. I thought he would go to another English club, wherever it might be, but um, I mean, what can he do apart from giving it his all on the pitch and lose? Because that's what's going to happen here. I mean, it happened against Liverpool. I only see it getting worse. But I think I've always thought Arsenal needed just a lot of questions need to be answered, like their fans say, because nothing.
Yeah, and it's just like how many changes can they actually make? You know, especially when the transfer market's not open. So it'll be interesting to see how they can change things around. I mean, you see some managers being able to do it, um, or some managers being not able to do it. So like Jose Mourinho, before he got went away from Chelsea, like, you know, he was having, I mean, these were the champions, you know, when they were having a horrible season. Um, and, you know, even with the they had, Jose Mourinho wasn't able to quite get it together with the team. And I remember Chelsea kind of releasing like a statement saying, we believe the manager has the players to, you know, build the team back up, something to that extent. Um, you know,
Look, it's possible. It's possible, but it's really hard nowadays because the players have so much power. I mentioned you in another podcast, Coutinho signed a 5-year new deal. And then a few months later, he sends in a transfer request to go to Barcelona.
yeah,
I mean, it's just ridiculous. But that's the owner's fault. Managers are between the wall and the knife. There's just not a lot they can do nowadays, unfortunately. But they can make decisions on the pitch to try to win games. There will be, but the problem with Wenger is just he hasn't. Look, his winning percentage over the 20 years is below 60%. More, he would be that percentage would be significantly higher, and he's just record. Looks like he keep on going to college, growing his own Arsenal legacy, not just by himself, of course, but he's uh he's part of the problem.
yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see, you know, what happens in the next few months, whether they keep losing games or because they have to start winning. The one way to relieve that pressure is to start winning. And then, you know, some fans can have, you know, short memory. I mean, like one instance, you know, well, but then again, Arsenal's they haven't been like they haven't been starved of success, but they've been starved of the Premier success, you know, league titles in recent years. So, um, much, you know, one can endure. That's, you know, that's always the question because some top clubs move on pretty quick. You know, Chelsea with Jose Mourinho, Man United with David Moyes. I mean, sometimes it's relentless. Like if Arsenal don't make the Champions League this season, Wenger has to go. It's there's no there's no debate. He has to go because you have to get new. You have to get a new person in. He's had his time. Unless he makes it. I mean that's a ruthless stance, but that's my take.
Yeah, no, I just think he should have walked away after winning the FA Cup last season. That was the perfect time for him, and
Like Louis
you
Van
know,
Gaal.
yeah, but we were all just shocked that he decided to keep on going. Um, it wasn't even down to him as well. Like he was offered a new contract, so that's why the owners and the board have a huge part to play in this. They offered him a new contract. They didn't have to.
Mm.
Wenger was unemployed for a few weeks, but believe it or not, and then he was offered a new 2-year deal and a pay rise as well. Um, he's the highest paid manager in the world. I just feel
uh,
really sorry for their fans because he's destroying his own legacy. Like I said, it's not just down to him. Um, the people above him haven't given him the resources and the um, financial resources to go and get the players. But he's part of the problem, and until he's gone, it's going to be more of the same for them. I'm afraid.
Is it good to sit from your position, like of, with Real Madrid, being, I mean, their success at the moment is incredible. Like you can kind of like observe these teams and know that your team is like the top club, like in a lot of respects, not in terms of playing ability, but just kind of the way they're managed under Zinedine Zidane. Um, and I mean, if you compare Arsenal to Real Madrid, I mean, it's night and day, isn't it? It's really a stark difference.
It shouldn't be. That's why it's so
Um,
sad. That's why it's so sad for
mm,
Arsenal because it shouldn't be. They should have known lower leagues. But in terms of their financial power, with a few star world class players, they were the invincibles. They used to have Ian Wright, Bergkamp. I mean, the list goes on. Robert Keon, Vieira, like then players would walk into any team from some like players playing right now that other clubs want, other top teams want. Sanchez, maybe Mesut Ozil, he did massively. Like I don't know what's happening to valued. It's down to him, obviously.
yeah, like Mesut Ozil's another one. I mean, there were rumors kind of like, whether, he might be leaving with Alexis Sanchez, um, kind of going away from Arsenal. Those are two key members, but he's staying. Um, and it's not healthy to have these rumors either. So that's another thing. Like as a fan, if you're hearing that, top players, more particularly Alexis Sanchez, may be going, it can be a hard pill to swallow, especially when you're talking of uh, quality players, getting rid of them and not getting much in return back in the transfer market. It's a two-way system, and I don't think Arsenal is playing it right, um, as you say. You know, Real Madrid is an example where they're doing extremely well. They've made some really smart transfers. In terms of their depth is excellent. Um, Also, Man U have rebuilded really, and they're doing.
The acceptance is there, right? And it's just it's just not there, and you see it, and then that leads on more often than not to bad results.
Yeah, no, exactly, and when you have that depth, it makes such a big difference. I mean, when with Man United, their bench players have been doing really well. Like Anthony Martial was on the bench, but when he came on, like he's been, kicking goals, and they've put, have Marcus Rashford. They've got rid of Wayne Rooney, well, Wayne kind of wanted to go to Everton as well, but um, you know, Man U have
I
the
think
depth.
if when going to be more competition, so like and Rooney's going back to has gone back now, not that badly, and Everton have made a lot of signings. So
Well, yeah, and they also have like a really good goalkeeper as well. Even though they lost Lukaku, they've been able to bring in some good players. Ross Barkley, I think, is remaining at Everton as well. Um,
yeah, he was another example, right, of in a way, because his contract, I think he has a year left on his contract, Ross Barkley, so Everton will be keen to try and keep hold of him, I would think. But he and Ronald Koeman, the manager, he was so ruthless with him. Play for us, okay, you can sit it out for the whole season. Um, I wonder now that they've managed to keep him, he'll probably change his stance on that because Ross Barkley is too good to keep him on the bench, right? But players have to be careful with the decisions they make sometimes because you sign again. I said again, you sign a contract because you want to. Like you're not forced to sign it, and you have to know. You have to know what you're going to get when you sign that contract.
But things can change so quickly in defense of those who do, sign a contract. I mean, like you mentioned Coutinho, though. Well, actually, that was only a few months apart. You're telling me from the contract signing to actually wanting to go. So that is a little bit unusual. So I mean, these things can definitely, yeah.
Yeah, Ross Barkley's was expiring, or I'm pretty sure he's got a year left. But even so, I would think like a year, a lot can happen in a year.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like maybe Ross Barkley was thinking now of, oh, hopefully I get sold to Barcelona, whoever, right? Same with Coutinho. But that might not work out for you. You know what I mean? So like again, I think players just have to be careful and think really hard before they make their decisions.
Take heed, players, of Lewis's advice. I think it's very good. No, but
No, it's not.
honestly, I
It's
agree
nothing
with Louis.
original.
Yeah.
It's nothing original, but it's what I would do. You know what I mean? And to be fair, a lot of players think before they do, but others, um, I find it just really funny. Danny Rose was another one, the Tottenham left back. He had 2 years left on his contract. I mean, bloody hell! Like it just gets to a point where it's funny because what are contracts for then if you don't commit to it?
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of contracts, is kind of the conversation is changing now. And
Back in the day, right? Contracts, players would um, be committed to those contracts, and
yeah,
what changed the players' future was a club coming in and bidding in for them, and taking them to their club. But now, like nowadays, it's all about the player. The player basically publicly, a player could honestly go publicly and say, "I want to go to that club, and if you don't let me, then I'll sit it out for the rest of the season, or you know, make you want to get rid of me." And it's like,
yeah,
come on, like you're not, no player is bigger than the club.
yeah. Well, I mean, RVP at the time when Arsenal was when RVP was the captain. I mean that bigger than the actual club, but RVP was back in that time. RVP was a real staple of that Arsenal squad, and a lot of fans hated him because he left. It was a little bit similar in that Cleveland LeBron to Miami kind of thing. Just the backlash there. Um,
Maybe, yeah, a little bit. Um, but with RVP, Arsenal fans have realised, especially now more than ever, that players are leaving because they want to win. We've just seen Oxlade-Chamberlain do it. I'm just afraid and worried for them that it's going to get worse. They're probably relieved that the transfer window is over for now.
yeah,
But come January, I mean, honestly, it all depends where they are um, on the ladder. They're doing in the Europa League, I guess, but very worrying times for them.
Yeah, and they need that depth because even though it's the Europa League, it's still another competition, and it's probably one that they're going to advance significantly in, given the level of competition in comparison to UEFA Champions League. So they need
Well,
that depth.
we take it a bit for granted, but didn't even make it through the group stages. That would be. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen. Like you still sort of have this expectation for Arsenal that they will make it through the group stage and maybe even top four, but volatile and unpredictable at the moment. And you're not going to achieve success like that. You know, you need stability and a positive stability in terms of winning games, go on good runs. Chelsea last season, they won 13 games on the bounce, I think, before
Mm.
their first loss. And that's the key to success.
Yep, building on momentum and keeping on upon it. I mean, momentum is such a significant thing in modern football. And Arsenal need to get that wheel turning quickly. One thing that is exciting coming up, slightly different direction, but slightly not so in another sense as well. FIFA 18 will be coming out soon, and one interesting addition to the game is, I don't know if you've seen this, they've incorporated animations to transfers so you can interact, say like in career mode, right? You can interact with the agent. So, you know, if it's an agent of a top player, I'm not 100% educated on this, but like say like it's Dybala from Juventus, you know, you can sweet talk their agent a little bit, or you can, you know, play rough. So it's an interesting feature, that one, because it kind of simulates real life.
Without a doubt. I mean, I haven't actually seen it, but for me, it doesn't even surprise me that it's made it because that simulates perfectly what it's like nowadays. Players
Yeah, well, it
have a
simulates
lot
what we're
more.
what we're talking about. You know?
No, it simulates uh, the power that players have nowadays compared to a few decades ago. And clubs have to be smart in how they handle that because, again, you don't want players signing new contracts, players, and a year later, they 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 want a transfer. They want to be transferred to a new club. It baffles me. Still baffles me.
Yeah, and I guess the animations part of FIFA will, like, you know, it will make it more immersive. You know, it will make it more real life, like talking to the player agent. Um, and whether you know, if you establish like a good relationship with, whether that allows you to get uh, more from that club in the future because you know, you've developed a good relationship. You've developed a poor relationship in the game with the club manager. Maybe that will stop you from getting play. I mean, there's different ways that the game can take that kind of angle, and I think it's a really exciting addition. So I credit the FIFA game developers for incorporating it into the game. They kind of had to, though. You look at NBA, right? And NBA's single player career mode's really quite good because, you know, it's very interactive. You have that dialogue. I mean, the Alex Hunter FIFA series, that was interesting as well. And just incorporating that a little bit into the career mode, I think, is a really exciting addition and might change the face of the game in future FIFAs as well, because it's not just about on the pitch, about off the pitch, like in the animations, like talking to the actual club agents. You know, be interesting. Like if I'm playing as Man U and I want Ronaldo back, I might just say, look, you know, drive a hard bargain, or See what?
I saw a really good tweet yesterday about Renato Sanchez and Paul Clement, the current Swansea manager. He used to be Ancelotti's assistant at Bayern Munich, at Real Madrid, and basically, right? Okay, Swansea are in the Champions League; they're in different leagues, so those two factors were, key for that move to happen. But there was a third element to it, and that was the friendship between both managers. And basically, the tweet said, "It's not what you know, it's who you know." It's like spot on because that made it happen. Renato Sanchez to Swansea, and no disrespect to Swansea, but we all know they're not a top club. Um, it's going to suit his game style though, and with Wilfred Bonny, I mean, it's going to be a partnership that other teams will have to be careful of. But fascinating. Really happy for Swansea for that move, and simulates FIFA simulates just that. The friendships.
Now it'll be definitely an exciting addition to the game itself, and yeah, some interesting transfers like you mentioned. Renato Sanchez, Swansea, loan, I think. So loan Mbappe. So we just got to see.
I think I mentioned Wilshere. I'm not sure if he was actually loaned out to Birmingham in the second division. I'm not sure if it's been confirmed, but again, that just tells you about Arsenal. No one really. It's just so sad. I mean, I hope for the league that they will turn it around at some stage. But this season, like I said, you can quote me on this. Might be the worst might be the worst in Arsenal's history. Maybe it's just what they need.
Well, to anyone watching this, let us know what you think Arsenal should do. Should they make some changes by January transfer window? Should they get rid of the manager? These are all questions we'd love to hear from you in the comments section below. And I'd like to thank Lewis for another show of From Melbourne to Madrid. Really, really appreciate it, man. Enjoy doing these. So, and I think your knowledge in this video was absolutely outstanding. I didn't have to do much. I was just kind of asking questions because
let me just point out I followed like transfer deadline day.
Yeah.
Like the whole day, I'm just till midnight because I just love it. Like you never know. Chelsea nearly signed Drinkwater from Leicester. Eventually didn't happen, but honestly, it just
no, they did. They did sign him, didn't they?
I think they were very close. Like I haven't actually, or maybe it went later into the evening. I'll have to look. I'll have to look at it.
I'll check it now. Hang on.
Yeah.
Chelsea signed midfielder from Leicester, so he has been signed to Chelsea.
Well, but has there actually been an official confirmation though? Because I always wait for that. But he must have been with it. He must have been with the England national team now. But
I'm just reading. It is official. It is official. He has gone to Chelsea.
I believe you, but see that you never know what can happen on transfer deadline day, folks.
Yeah. See,
I didn't know all everything because everything is so volatile. And there it is. Wow.
5-year deal.
We'll find out the fee.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Must have been. Yeah, I mean, Drinkwater is fairly young, but look at that now. Kante and Drinkwater.
Wow. Old, yeah. I'm not sure of the exact contract details, but it'll be interesting to look up.
They've just replaced Matic, just like that. To be honest, I mean, different players in a way, but very defensive, very organized players. I mean, Chelsea. That is a last minute, incredible transfer. Because losing Matic to United, that was. You would think they would have a replacement. They've got it. So that's great.
Yeah, I mean that's an example of a smart transfer, isn't it? Whereas Arsenal, they lose someone, they don't quite get the right player back. It's
Yeah, and that more often than not leads to the results. Although
exactly.
football is a very unpredictable game, people. So can't wait for the next. Well, Euro qualifies. I'm going to tomorrow, so we'll see what happens.
Wow. Do you reckon
World Cup.
Spain will win?
Well, it is Italy. We have to be very precautious here, but the fact that it's at the Bernabeu might play a role for
Yeah.
sure. But
Well, to people watching, Lewis lives in Spain. I live in Melbourne, but I'm from an Italian background, and I remember I went to your house, and we watched like a replay of Italy and Spain, was it like the Euro champion?
2012, that must have been. Yeah,
That just kind of demolished,
yeah, 4-0.
So don't want to talk about that. maybe Italy will get revenge. We'll see. But
No, both of them should make it through. Top two teams make it through automatically, and then third one will go into another qualifying stage. But looking forward to that.
absolutely, and I hope everyone who's watched has enjoyed it. I know Lewis and I did, and let us know. Yeah, what was the most interesting transfer in this transfer market to you? I mean, we've talked about a couple, but we'd love to hear your thoughts. So thank you from Luis and I.